Okay, finally we have the fuel pump. It's arrived, so I've been waiting. It was supposed to arrive yesterday, but it didn't. It's arrived today, so gonna open the box, see what we've got, get it fitted to the fuel tank and see if we can get this bike started and get it to idle properly. Still waiting on some other bits and pieces. Carburation balancing kit, which should arrive also this week sometime, probably towards the end of the week, probably Friday I would imagine. It's supposed to arrive Thursday, will probably arrive Friday, no doubt. And then we can balance the carburetors up properly once we have that and actually really make it run really well. So without further ado, we'll get into unboxing. Okay, so this is the unit. Just brought it out of the box. Looks like someone's already opened it. Also looks like it's just maybe looks like it's been crushed a little bit in the packaging at some point. Maybe someone's crushed it in the packaging and maybe it's been returned, I'm not sure. It looks okay otherwise. Anyway, we'll put it in and see how it goes. Got a couple of marks on it. It's supposed to be brand new, this, so it's a bit disconcerting when it's got marks already sort of marked on it, which I wouldn't have expected it to have. Anyway, we'll put it in and we'll see how we go. We'll get the tank out and see where we can go from there. Okay, I've mounted the new pump into the tank now, so we should be ready to test it shortly. Put the on-off tap onto the end of it, just unscrews, screws onto the new one, and we can see the old one was pretty, all the seals and everything inside here were pretty bad. The stem that's supposed to be on the end with the filter on it completely snapped off inside the tank. Aside from that, I mean, it was leaking. It had been leaking out of this sort of joint around here, which is unserviceable. I mean, you could drill the rivets out, try and fix it, but I think it's probably just not worth it. The diaphragm and everything will be old. So we've got the new one on here now. I've got to put the vacuum goes onto there from the crank, and that's where the main fuel goes on. Over on the bike, we've got just extended the hose, got a new piece of hose on here now. It's a little bit longer so we can get to the tank. Got to put that on. That's the old vacuum hose. The vacuum hose, I will replace this, but for now I'll just use this and we'll try and get it running again. Okay, we have it running. It's I've got the idle down to almost normal now. It hasn't been warmed up for a while, so I've just got it idling a little bit higher than normal, but seems to be going. I'm going to fit the grips, fit all the other bits and pieces that I have got in stock here now, and then just wait for a few more bits and pieces. Probably tomorrow I'll put the seat on and just have a quick ride around the block and just see how it runs. Need to rebuild the brakes still. Still need to do the front forks, do the front fork oil and stuff like that. We can clean this up just with a little bit of a wire brush and some little bit of green wool, which I'll show you shortly. Like a Scotch-Brite pad is usually pretty good for cleaning this up. We'll clean this all up, get the new grips on. Oh, the easy way to get this on and off too, if you have one, is if you've got an air compressor with a little with the air end on it, you can just stick the air end and press it in underneath the grips, and you can just kind of expand the grips out using the compressed air and just pull them off. That's the other way to get them off, but I don't have a compressor, so it's hard for me to do that. Same with getting them on, you can do the same thing. I use a little bit of dishwashing soap and that helps get them on and off. The easiest way to remove them typically is just to cut them. Just cut down the length of them, just pull them up as you go and cut them off. Remove the one on the other side, it's about to come off as well, same sort of thing, just cut it off. You've got to be careful with the one on the side, you don't want to damage the throttle tube. It's kind of important that that stays in fairly good nick, because if that binds up it can cause a problem. We don't want it sticking, that's for sure. And the bar ends are pretty easy. They just have like a expanding kind of rubber thing on the end of them, or a metal piece. It doesn't really matter, it's all the same. It pulls up, it expands them apart and kind of pulls them in there. They're usually just done with an Allen key from the end. You just unscrew them and you've got to kind of wiggle them around and just pull them out. So we have both of those off, they're not going back on. This is going in the bin. Okay, I've fitted the new grips and bar ends. Looking pretty nice now. Now, these grips are just fantastic grips. I just think that like the feel that you get from these grips, they're kind of tacky without being sticky. I just think the Ramfield grips are some of the better grips you can get for your bike. Definitely my next bike I'll be putting these on again for sure. There's a couple of different styles and tackinesses, as they call it, depending on what you want. So that's obviously the clutch side. We've got the throttle side here. The throttle side still needs a bit of adjustment because it's not quite springing back properly at the moment, but we'll soon fix that up because I haven't set it down the carb end. But yeah, it's feeling good. It's feeling really good. So you know, it's a couple more steps along, starting to, you know, come together. There's got to get this tank pad off this tank and put a new tank pad on here. This tank pad's had it. We've got some tank pads here, so we'll have to figure out how to get that off. Probably, usually a bit of CRC or something like that gets this kind of stuff off, gets the glue off, melts it off. You've got to kind of rub. It's a bit of hard work, but we'll get that off. Put a new pad on there. This is sort of original stuff. We'll keep that, try and stick it down a little bit better. Yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of where we're at today. This is about as far as we can go. Might have to get some paint and take these stays off and stuff and just clean these stays up and get these painted. Oh, the other thing I have ordered too is for the front stand. I've ordered the pin for the front stand. So it turns out you can order a pin, and it's a 24 millimeter pin for this to get the center stand happening. So we'll get the center stand happening. Once the center stand's happening, I can get the front forks off this bike, and we can start servicing those front forks because they will need servicing for sure. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what this bike runs like. I have no idea. I haven't ridden one of these, as I've said before. So, I mean, this one's done quite a few Ks. So, yeah, quite a few Ks. Saying almost 100,000 Ks, which I don't know for a 250. I don't know how realistic that is. What do we got? 97. Here we go, 97,849, 97,849. So yeah, 100,000 Ks for a 250cc bike. I mean, that's outstanding, really, when you think about it. Just incredibly reliable engines, you know, cam driven, no timing chain. So I had a bit of a hassle recently where I couldn't start the bike. It was my own fault, really. What happened is I had the bike outside. I was just trying to get it idling. I wanted to sort of try and bring it up to temperature. I'd had it running a couple of times and it was running pretty successfully, or reasonably successfully. A little bit of smoke because the bike's been sitting for a while, so there's probably a little bit of oil getting past the rings and things like that with it being old and sitting for so long. Anyway, I accidentally forgot to turn the fuel on, of course, so next thing the bike stopped, and then trying to get it started again was a nightmare. I had no fuel, so yeah, so I did all the usual things, you know, tried everything else that I had on hand to try and get the bike to run, and basically flooded the bike. Had a little tiny bit of petrol in the container, but it just wasn't enough, and I didn't have quite enough in the tank to get it started again. And the long and the short of it was that because I was busy, I just didn't have any time to work on it for a couple of days. Needed to go and pick up some more fuel, so I picked up some more fuel, and then I just couldn't get it to start after that. It would not start. And the outcome of that basically was that the plugs were fouled, basically. They just got fouled up. I just fouled them up for all my mucking around, and that was why it wouldn't start, because the plugs were fouled up and kind of wet on the end. So what I ended up doing was stripping the bike down a little bit further, taking the front fairing off, because that was going to have to come off anyway, taking the ram air ducts and stuff off. And then putting 4 new plugs in it, and after that it fired up beautifully. So yeah, so then I took it for a ride around the block here, but it's just not quite running right. But that is, you know, the thing with 4 carburetors is that they have to be balanced, they have to be set up properly for them to run properly, and needles and everything all have to be in the right places. I don't know with this bike whether it's been already mucked about with or not. It's possible that it has been. And with carburetors, everything is just so finicky. So if it's wrong, it doesn't work. And in this case, it's just all not working. Okay, so the other problem I've had with this bike that I'm going to hopefully solve is this one here, where, see, I've turned it on and now there's nothing going, nothing happening, no life. So we got to kind of wiggle it around again. So this is not the best, and I certainly wouldn't want to be on the motorway with this turning itself off or doing anything stupid. So that's number 1 problem. Number 2 problem is we've got 2 keys. So this key works. Oh, they're both slightly different, by the way, too. So this key works in here. Oh, how about this key? Oh yeah, that key works too. Yeah, surprise, surprise. So yeah, that barrel's just had it basically. And then what we have to do here, you would think that this one would work here, but No, that one doesn't work. And this one, if you push it in all the way, does it work? No, it doesn't. You have to kind of sort of lift it out a little bit to make it work like that. So it sort of kind of works. It's a pain in the neck, plus that's broken, which I also don't like because that's ugly and that's just in a bad state. And then on the tail here, I'm assuming that probably one of these keys works here. Okay, well that key works there. Let's have a look at the second key and see if that works. No, that doesn't. Okay, so this key seems to sort of work on the ignition, that doesn't work on anything else, and that's all just a bit of a joke really. I just really don't like that arrangement. So what we're going to do is we're going to can that. We've got a new barrel for the lock in the back seat, new ignition barrel, 2 keys obviously, and a new filler cap. So we're going to have, and it comes with all screws as well. So we're going to have one set of keys that's going to turn this whole bike on and off with, and we're going to have a spare key because we've got 2 keys already. So we're going to can all of the old stuff. I don't know whether this is just going to go straight on. Supposedly it will, but we'll see. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I know on my 400RR it doesn't work like that. This was all just a little bit different, but maybe on this bike maybe it will work. So let's see if it works out of the box. We'll put that on shortly and see where we go. The second thing that I've got to do is fork oil. So I've got, takes a 10 weight fork oil in these forks, 387 mils or something like that. So I want to get fork oil into these forks. I don't know how old the fork oil is. I imagine it's pretty old. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing a fork upgrade. I might look into putting upside down forks on this bike. I'm not sure yet whether I keep it standard or whether I do that, but it's because the fork springs to me seem a little bit divey. I've got some leather protector for my leather gear, and then the most important bit of kit that I've got here now is this for balancing the carburetors. So this is just a cheapish kit I guess, but it should be good enough to balance the carburetors on this bike. So it comes with a whole bunch of fittings. I haven't tried it out yet. The hoses. We'll get that set up. We'll get the tank off this bike. The other problem I had was that if I was, in order to be able to do this, I need to be able to run the bike as I go. Okay, so I've got to take the tank off in order to synchronise the carburetors. Obviously, I need to have the bike running, so I need some fuel coming from somewhere. And I was looking online and I was looking at someone doing the balancing job, and I saw someone had a small fuel bottle, and I thought, oh, well, that's quite a good idea. And then I remembered I had these radio controlled car fuel bottles, which are for nitro fuel, and they just happened to fit perfectly onto the end of the fuel hose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill one of these with petrol, get it on the end of the fuel hose. Hopefully we can get enough petrol going so we can run this as we go. I mean, I might need to poke another hole in this maybe to get some air going into the bottle as well, so we don't create suction on it. But we'll have a go, see if I can get this working, and see if we can get these carburetors balanced up. Now, the second issue that I've had here has been my front stand. I've wanted to be able to get this bike up in the air, get the front end up on the centre lift, which goes under the triple tree, and I haven't been able to do it because I just didn't have a pin that was the right size. So I ordered one of those. Turned out to be a 24mm for this bike, and I now have one the correct size. So, but that of course came with its own set of troubles, I guess, or I don't know, learning to be positive, I guess, learning outcomes or something like that. Anyway, I'll show you what the problem was. So the pins that this bike comes with, it comes with an assortment of pins, and these pins would be more than good enough for most modern sports bikes, but of course this being an older bike, it had to be a different size. And this is also a slightly older style of front lift. So instead of having a pin through the centre, where normally you just have like a split pin that goes through the centre of here that you can just kind of pull in and out. This has a screw in it, which you have to take this, you slide it into there. Obviously put the screw out. You put the screw through the hole here, and you screw it in. And that holds it in place while you do the lift. None of these were going to work for this bike. So I got the new one, the new pin, and the new pin comes with a hole drilled in it for the newer type of stand, which has the release pin that pushes through it, and it's a slightly different stand. Of course, this one's a little bit different. So next job was to drill a hole in it, tap it, put some thread in there, and get that working for the stand, which I did but of course I drilled the hole slightly too large, so I had to go to a slightly different size thread. So now I have drilled it, tapped it, got the new bolt to sit in there, and we finally have this, so it might work. So let's give it a try. Right, and now we can service the forks properly and the bike's supported properly, which is great. So that's exactly what we wanted, and that's how these stands work, and that's why I prefer these stands, because you can unbolt the forks, you can take everything out, and you can work on this whole front end. Now you can take the front wheel off if you wanted to, or you can take the front wheel off of that stand as well. But you certainly couldn't take the forks out. So that's it. That's how it works. Okay, so I've got all the needles sort of for the vacuum pumps all set up now. It was a bit of a pain in the ass. I ended up having to move undo the bolt for the water pump here, or thermostat I think that is actually, and just lift it up out the way, because it was the connectors that I've got that fit into here are just a little bit too long. It would have been nice to have had some shorter ones, but I just didn't get any with this kit. I'd probably have to order them separately. So it's set up. It was easier to lift the carb out for me to get at this and to do this. I'm going to put the carb back on now, and then we'll get around to trying to have a balance and see whether we can get this bike running and get it balanced up. Okay, I have this all ready to go now. I don't know how successful this is going to be, whether this bottle's going to feed the carbs enough, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to feed them another way, I'm not sure. Could be a little bit difficult to get started maybe. We'll see how we go. See how the vacuum hoses work. First time doing this, so should be an interesting experiment, I guess. Okay, so after hooking the carb synchronization tools up this afternoon, we've discovered that really probably is something slightly more serious wrong with the engine, and that's the reason we're not developing power properly. So I'm going to have to get to the bottom of that. It could be a number of things. It could be, I mean, this bike's done a lot of Ks, done 100,000 Ks or almost 100,000 Ks, so it could be pistons, pistons, rings, gas leaking past the rings, something like that. It could be valves, inlet or exhaust valves, and or it could be a manifold leak somewhere as well. But it's highly unlikely to be a manifold leak, because I've already replaced the rubbers. But it still could be one of those things. So I'm going to have to perform some sort of leak down test on this now, and then from there we should be able to diagnose, where the problem's coming from. So that's going to be the next step. Unfortunately, to do that, I'm going to need some more tools. I need a compressor, and I'm also going to need a leak down test tool. So I'll have to go and buy those things. I've needed a compressor for a while. It's been a pain in the neck not having one, actually. There's been a number of times when I could have done one and haven't had one. So I sort of figure maybe it's time to just buy one. And buy the tools. So tomorrow will be day to go hunt for the tools, find what I need, come back here, do the test, and then we can decide what to do with the engine from there. But that's about as far as I've got with the engine today. Now the other thing I have done is I've connected up the switch and stuff, so I'll show you that stuff now. The first thing that's been done is we've got rid of the old fuel filler cap and put the new one on, and now we have this all nicely keyed. And it just looks a whole heap better, basically. So that's the first job that I've completed tonight, and then the second job that I've completed is getting the ignition switch on here. So the ignition switch now is all completely fixed. None of this dodgy ignition switch stuff anymore. It's all very positive now, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted happening. Now, one problem I did find with these switches, even though the switch says it will work for an MC22, the plug is wrong on the other end, of course. So the plug at this end, where it plugs into here, was wrong, and I had to cut the plug off the old one and then solder it onto here and use a bit of heat shrink to sort it out. I'll show you some pictures of that stuff. But basically, this is the old one here, where I've cut the plug off it. The plug that it came with was a male, and it needed to plug into a male. So we needed the female end, which we didn't have, so that's sorted. And And I haven't put the rear switch in yet, but there's or the rear lock in yet. But there's no point in doing that because I haven't got the fairings yet. So until I have the fairings, I won't bother with that. And that's about it. That's about where we're at tonight. So so into another day again tomorrow. See what we can get. See if I can get it sussed out a little bit more. Figure out what's wrong with this compression. I might be able to get a bit from my compression tool so I can run a compression test on it as well. But the leak down test will tell us everything we need to know regardless of whether we do a compression test or not. So yeah, that's tomorrow's job. So I'll talk to you guys again once I get that sorted.